Burnout is one of those problems that most people don't consider that big of an issue until they're suffering from burnout and then they're not getting anything done and they just bring themselves further and further down into this rut and making the problem worse and worse. And I know this isn't like a Linux or a tech-related video, but I feel like a lot of people in this world are the sort of people who tend to suffer from burnout. I know a lot of you guys are going through uni and college, and while you might think that I make a lot of videos and I must be suffering from burnout all the time, to be completely honest, I'm not. Like, when I was at uni, that was when it was way, way worse. I found that way more stressful to deal with. Maybe it's because I'm better at dealing with it now, but I'll talk about that in just a bit. First up, I want to talk about, my experience actually dealing with burnout and why it was such a big deal when I was going through uni. So, I was one of those people who always strived for getting really high grades. Most of my classes I finished with above an 85%, and that's not because I'm like some 200 IQ super smart guy. It's because I worked stupidly hard. Like, I would spend upwards of 40 or 50 hours just working on assignments, and that's not a healthy way to work. I wouldn't go outside that much. I was basically just working on assignments and stuff like that pretty much all of the time. And while first year was fine because there weren't really that many assignments to really get done, when second year hit, second year was by far the hardest year in my entire degree. And I pulled all-nighters, and it was not a good experience. There were multiple times during that year where I was thinking, why don't I just quit? Why am I doing this? Which probably wouldn't have been the worst thing, because now I'm making YouTube videos. But ignoring the fact that I'm making YouTube videos now, I did not want to deal with that year. And that's because I just didn't have a good way to actually deal with burnout. I just basically kept working and tried to basically outpace the burnout. Once the work gets done, you surely can't hit burnout. The problem is, the work never gets done because there's always more work to do. Now, I know this is going to sound really, really dumb. I am fully aware of this, but the easiest way to deal with burnout is to just not get burnt out. I know that sounds a lot like, just don't be depressed, just don't be poor, but I do have some logic behind this. Once you've hit burnout, getting out of that stage is really, really difficult. And the things I use to keep myself out of burnout do help once you're in that phase as well. It's just that getting out of that is much, much harder. So the first thing you should be doing, that everybody should be doing, regardless of how busy you actually are, is have some form of plan for your week. It doesn't have to be, hey, I've planned out half-an-hour blocks for everything I'm doing, but make sure you know what you're actually doing every single day. Because what's going to happen if you don't is you're going to say, I want to get this thing done. And typically, at least for me, when I have an assignment, it's going to take up as much time as I allow it to take up. So if I have an assignment that should really only take 3 or so hours of solid work to do, if I just don't have a plan for that day, it's probably going to expand out to take up the entire day, which is going to make me feel like the assignment is taking way longer than it really should. And while one assignment like that isn't that big of a deal, the problem isn't just having one piece of work, it's having a continuous stream of work that never feels like it's actually going to end. And along with that, make sure you're actually rotating your assignments as well. If you have a couple of big assignments, don't just work on one of them and then start on the next. That is something I did at one point, and I realized that is a really horrible idea. You get really sick of seeing the exact same questions in the exact same format, especially if it's something that actually takes a lot of work to really get done. Swap out your assignments, go back and forth, try out the different topics, and it will keep your sanity. Along with that, if you're the sort of person who likes to wait till the last minute to get an assignment done, stop doing that. Just stop doing that. It's going to be bad for you. Even though it is going to take the same amount of time to actually get done, having that deadline just around the corner is going to add to your stress. Having that deadline just around the corner is going to make it way more stressful than it really needs to be. And by avoiding those last-minute work sessions, what you can do is make sure you actually have time to take a break. I don't just mean take a break so you can go eat some lunch and then sit at your computer while you're eating. No, what I mean is take a break away from whatever you're working on. If you're doing stuff on your computer, don't use your computer. If you're doing stuff, I don't know, in a shed. I can't imagine how many people are watching this channel who do stuff in a shed. Don't be in the shed. Be somewhere else. Make sure you get some form of change of scenery, even if it's just a different room in your house. I know with a lot of people still being in lockdown, even though, like, it is starting to open back up, it's hard to get, like, a full change of scenery. But at least be somewhere else that isn't where you're always working. And do something else. It doesn't matter what it is. If you like learning a language, go learn a language. If you like, I don't know, playing solitaire, do that. Keep your mind off the work while you're on break. I can guarantee it is really going to help you. In my case, I'll go for a walk and usually listen to a podcast. In most cases, it'll be something like Sean Carroll's Mindscape or some other sciencey related podcast. And because it's been raining a lot here recently, it's already hard enough to get out into the sun anyway. So having those small times when I actually can do that is actually really beneficial for me, and I feel like is part of the reason why I don't really get burnt out while I'm making videos pretty much most of the days of the week. And when it comes to taking a break, I know it's not always going to be possible, but if it is, try to take at least 1 day off a week. If possible, try to take 2 off, but I know that can't always be done. But at least 1 day where you're just not dealing with the problem whatsoever. Back when I first started this channel, I was recording videos every single day and basically just uploading them for the next day. I stopped doing that and now I'm doing bulk recordings, but there was a time when I was actually doing a live stream on Sunday as well. So I was still basically doing something related to my channel every single day of the week. Now I no longer do that, and honestly, I feel way better about working on the channel. Having that day off where I can just do anything else is a really nice feeling. And this last point isn't going to help you if you're at the start of a semester and you already feel burnt out, or if you're doing something that doesn't really have a defined end goal. But if there's only a couple of weeks left, and then you go on break for a couple of weeks, sometimes what really helps is just pushing yourself just that little bit extra to get the work done so that you can finally just stop thinking about the problem and come back to it later. At some point, you do have to come back and actually deal with your problems, and while you can certainly mitigate the issue of burnout, really the only thing you can actually do at the end is just make sure you get everything done with enough time to actually relax and not think about anything else. Now, I know all this advice sounds really obvious to someone who already knows it, and even then, it's still fairly obvious advice, but I still think there's some value in hearing this from someone who actually has dealt with some pretty serious burnout, and this is the way that I have gone and addressed it in my own life. And what I want you to know is that even if it feels like you're the only person dealing with this problem, you absolutely aren't. I can almost guarantee that everybody else in your cohort is dealing with some level of burnout. It's just that a lot of other people have already managed to work out ways they can deal with it to make sure that it doesn't become a serious problem. I am no expert in psychology. At the end of the day, I can only really talk from personal experience. But what I can say is please use my example of massively overworking as a counterexample of how you should act. There's not really much benefit in spending 50 plus hours working on your degree. If you're going to be spending that much time, use it on something actually productive, like, say, building up a portfolio or something that actually has value once you've actually left uni. I think that's going to be it for me. I know this was a fairly rambly video, but I hope there's something of value that you actually got out of this. And if you did like this video and you want to become one of these amazing people over here and support the channel, please go check out my Patreon subscribe, Pay, linked in the description down below. I've got a podcast called Tech Over Tea where I just ramble about absolute garbage. That's available pretty much anywhere. I've got a gaming channel called Brodie Robertson Plays where I live stream twice a week and upload about 5 or so YouTube shorts. And this channel is also available over on Odyssey. That's going to be it for me, and I'm out.